The ballroom at the Grand Hyatt in New York sparkled. Fancy lights hung everywhere, and important people in expensive clothes buzzed around. Among them, in a brilliant sapphire dress, stood Ava Jenkins, the only black CEO in a sea of wealthy families. She was about to sign a huge $583 million deal with the Sterling family. Mr. Sterling, with his slick gray hair, beamed with pride. His wife, Mrs. Sterling, a picture of elegance, chatted happily with guests. Their 17-year-old son, Ethan, however, looked bored, his eyes scanning the room for something, anything, to make the night less dull. What happened next would be splashed across every phone screen and seen by millions. But the Sterlings, in their arrogant bubble, didn't realize that the woman Ethan was about to target wasn't just some easy mark. They had poked a sleeping dragon, a woman who had been quietly preparing for months. By the time they understood their mistake, it would be far too late. The city lights stretched out like a glittering blanket below. Ava stood in her sleek office on the 42nd floor, the acquisition papers spread across her shiny glass desk. $583 million. The number glowed on her screen, huge and almost unbelievable. Her reflection stared back from the window, a 32-year-old black woman, self-made, the founder of SecureNet, a company that had grown from a tiny basement operation to a major player in cybersecurity and data infrastructure. Tonight, her natural curls were pulled back, her face showing nothing. This deal was supposed to change everything. The Sterling Group wanted to buy her special technology, the one she'd built with her own hands, patent by patent, overcoming every no. The office door opened, and Mark Chin, her chief operating officer, walked in with 2 fancy glasses and a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than Ava's first office rent. "You're doing that thing again," Mark said, placing the glasses down. "The thing where you read documents that 12 lawyers already approved." 13. Ava corrected, her eyes still on the screen. "I hired another one last week." Mark poured the champagne. "Anyway, this is it. Global reach, powerful friends. Sterling Group isn't just money, it's infrastructure across 6 continents. Power grids. Defense systems. You'll be untouchable." "Nobody's untouchable," Ava said, finally turning from the window. She took the glass but didn't drink. "That's what people forget." Mark raised his glass anyway. "To the deal of a lifetime." Ava touched her glass to his but set it down without a sip. Her eyes drifted back to Section 14, Subsection C, the part about how her company would work with theirs. She'd read it 6 times. Each time, something fell off, like a door left open in a house she thought she'd locked tight. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but she recognized the secret code. The invitation had arrived. The Sterling family was hosting a big international gala in New York where the official signing would happen. Not in a boring conference room, but in front of powerful investors, government officials, cameras, and people who measured their worth in family history rather than just money. "They want to show," Ava said quietly. Mark looked over her shoulder at the invitation. "They want to be seen doing business with you. That's good, right?" Ava's finger hovered over the accept button. Mr. Sterling could sign this deal in his sleep. Why did he need an audience? Mark didn't have an answer. Ava's mind went back in time, as it always did when things seemed too easy. 7 years ago, she sat in a boardroom with venture capitalists who listened to her idea with looks ranging from polite to pitying. A young woman in her 20s with a complex tech idea and no powerful friends. They dismissed her before she even finished talking. 2 years after that, a big company copied her idea, launched it as their own, and nearly drowned her in legal bills she couldn't afford. She remembered the night she almost gave up, almost sold everything for next to nothing. Then, the City Trust data breach happened. 40 million customer records stolen. Every major company failed to stop it. Ava's system fixed it in 16 hours. After that, her phone never stopped ringing. She learned something in those years. The people who smile while they're stealing from you never think you're watching. "Accept the invitation," Ava said finally. "But book me a separate hotel. Not the one they suggest." Mark frowned. Why? Because I want to choose my own exit. 3,000 miles away, Mr. Sterling stood in his own office, a fancy corner suite in Manhattan with a grand view of Central Park. He was 58, with silver hair and the kind of confidence that came from never hearing no. His business empire spread across many industries: factories, shipping, energy, real estate, government defense contracts. The Sterling Group was a name that opened doors in Washington, London, Beijing. Victor Stone, his longtime legal advisor, sat across from him, looking over contracts. Victor was 10 years younger than Mr. Sterling but more cautious. He'd been with Sterling for 15 years, long enough to know when his boss was too confident. The Jenkins acquisition, Victor said, not looking up. Her company controls the digital brains for half our new systems. If she wanted to, she could lock us out. Mr. Sterling waved a hand dismissively. She won't. She needs us more than we need her. That's why she's selling. She hasn't signed yet. She will. Mr. Sterling smiled. People like her always do. They build something amazing, then realize they can't protect it alone. We offer protection, growth, legitimacy. Victor put the contract down. Mr. Sterling, I've been looking into her background. She's not typical. She didn't come from money or connections. Everything she has, she earned. People like that don't give things away easily. Then it's good we're paying $583 million, isn't it? Mr. Sterling stood, straightening his tie. Make sure everything's ready for New York. I want this signing perfect. Public. Symbolic. Victor hesitated. Why public? We could close this privately. Mr. Sterling looked at him like he'd asked why the sky was blue. Because appearances matter, Victor. When people see Ava Jenkins standing beside me, signing over her company, they see the natural order of things. Smart ideas meet resources. Talent meets power. It's a story. And if a story goes wrong, it won't. Mr. Sterling's smile never faded. Trust me. Mrs. Sterling was in her penthouse garden when Mr. Sterling told her about the gala. She was 54, an architect who designed museums and embassies, a woman whose social calendar was a form of power. She looked up from her orchids with immediate interest. Ethan should come, she said. He needs to see what real power looks like. Mr. Sterling thought about it. Their son was 17, finishing his last year at an exclusive boarding school, his grades cushioned by money. He was smart enough, but soft in ways that worried Mr. Sterling. Too used to comfort, too unaware of how the world actually worked. Fine, Mr. Sterling agreed. But he behaves. This is business. Mrs. Sterling smiled. He'll be perfect. Ethan Sterling, at that very moment, was in his dorm room playing a video game with two friends, barely listening as his mother called to tell him about the New York gala. A gala sounded boring. But when she mentioned private jets, and that some of his friends could come, he perked up. Will there be celebrities? He asked. Better, Mrs. Sterling said. There will be people who make celebrities possible. Ethan didn't really understand that, but he said yes anyway. Anything was better than another weekend at school. Back in her city, Ava sat across from Dr. Lena Davis in a quiet corner of a private club. Lena was 61, a former government regulator who had been one of Ava's first investors when no one else would even take a meeting. She believed in Ava not just because of her ideas, but because she'd watched her recover from being copied, sued, and almost destroyed, without losing her sharpness. You're thinking too much, Lena said, sipping her tea. That's usually a good sign. Ava smiled faintly. They want a public signing in New York, at a gala. Lena's expression shifted slightly. Why public? That's what I keep asking myself. Have you signed the final documents? No. Ava leaned forward. I've been doing my own quiet checks. Something about their system doesn't match what they've told us. Lena set her cup down carefully. What did you find? Gaps. Things that don't quite fit in their security setup. Nothing illegal, maybe, but things that don't line up. Ava paused. It's like looking at a building with a beautiful front, and realizing the foundation is cracked. Have you told them? Not yet. I wanted to be sure. Ava's voice dropped. If I'm wrong, I look crazy. If I'm right and say something, they'll fix it before I can prove it. Lena studied her for a long moment. So, you're going to New York? I am. And you're going to smile and play along while you figure out what they're hiding? Ava didn't answer, which was answer enough. Lena reached across and squeezed her hand. Be careful. Men like Mr. Sterling don't build empires by being careless. If there's something wrong, he already knows. Then why buy my company? Because maybe your company is the only thing holding his together. That sentence stayed with Ava for days. When she landed in New York, the city was bathed in the soft glow of early autumn, the skyline a majestic silhouette against the fading light. Her hotel room overlooked Central Park, a deliberate choice for its distance from the main gala venue. She stood at the window with two phones in her hands. One showed the acquisition agreement, ready to sign. The other displayed a secret folder containing audit reports no one knew existed yet. Her team back home was waiting for instructions. Dr. Lena Davis was waiting for a signal. And somewhere in this city, the Sterling family was preparing for a night they thought they controlled. Ava opened her laptop and typed a single message to her chief technology officer. Prepare provisional protocol suspensions. Do not execute. Wait for my authorization. Then she closed the laptop, looked out at the peaceful park, and began getting ready for the gala. She chose a deep sapphire dress, elegant but not flashy. She wore her hair natural, her makeup minimal, no jewelry except small earrings. She wanted to be remembered for her presence, not her glitter. As she checked her reflection one last time, her phone buzzed with a message from Mark. Everyone's asking if you're really going through with this. Ava typed back. I haven't decided yet. That was the truth. The whole truth. She was walking into a room full of people who would assume they knew her, assume they understood her, assume she was there to play a role they'd already written. But Ava Jenkins had learned a long time ago that the most dangerous person in any room was the one nobody was watching. She picked up her small clutch, took one last look at the city below, and walked out the door. The ballroom was exactly what Ava expected. Crystal chandeliers that sparkled like frozen waterfalls. Marble floors so shiny they mirrored everything. White-gloved waiters gliding between guests with champagne and appetizers that cost more than most people's monthly rent. A classical orchestra played soft, expensive-sounding music from a raised platform. The guest list was a who's who of global power, government ministers, top CEOs, old money families whose wealth had lasted for centuries. Ava entered alone. She politely turned down the offer of an escort, a suggested arrival time, every gentle attempt to control her entrance. The conversations near the door quieted slightly as she walked in. Some people recognized her face from business magazines. Others saw a black woman in an elegant dress and made assumptions about why she was there. She had learned to read those assumptions in the tilt of a head, the pause before greeting, the way eyes searched for whoever she must be accompanying. A waiter offered champagne. Ava accepted but didn't drink, using the glass as something to hold. She moved through the room slowly, listening more than speaking. She heard bits of conversations, business deals, elections, property arguments, jet schedules. The orchestra shifted to something livelier. Then the energy in the room changed. Heads turned toward the main entrance. The Sterling family had arrived. Mr. Sterling entered first, naturally commanding attention. His tuxedo was perfect, his silver hair impeccable, his smile practiced and warm. He moved through the crowd like a king greeting his subjects, shaking hands, laughing at just the right moments, creating small circles of importance wherever he stopped. Mrs. Sterling followed just behind, wearing a white gown that probably cost more than a car. She was elegant in a way that came from a lifetime of being watched, her posture perfect, her smile strategic. She touched arms, kissed cheeks, said names like secret passwords that opened invisible doors. Behind them, looking vaguely bored, was Ethan, 17, already wearing his privilege like a second skin. His tuxedo was a bit too trendy, his hair deliberately messy in that expensive way. He held a glass that probably wasn't his first, scanning the room with the expression of someone forced to attend a boring family event. The orchestra hit a loud note as if on cue. Mr. Sterling raised a hand in acknowledgement, and the room actually applauded. Ava watched from the side, her face carefully neutral. She'd seen this before, the performance of power, the assumption that everyone present was either an ally or unimportant. Mr. Sterling began working the room systematically, Mrs. Sterling beside him, Ethan trailing like an afterthought. They moved closer to where Ava stood. She didn't move toward them, didn't position herself in their path. She simply waited. When Mr. Sterling finally spotted her, his smile widened. He changed direction, cutting through the crowd with Mrs. Sterling and Ethan following. "Ava Jenkins!" Mr. Sterling's voice carried a warmth that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You're here! Wonderful!" He extended his hand. Ava shook it. His grip was firm, practiced, the handshake of a man who'd been doing this since birth. "Thank you for the invitation," Ava said evenly. Of course. Mr. Sterling held her hand just a moment too long before releasing it. "Everyone, this is Ava Jenkins, our innovative partner." He gestured broadly to the people nearby who naturally moved closer. "She's built something remarkable, something we're proud to be bringing into the Sterling family." The language was careful, partner, not equal. Bringing into, not joining. Proud to be, not privileged to work with. Ava noticed. She always noticed. "Your company's quite impressive," Mrs. Sterling said, her smile perfect. "We've heard wonderful things." "Thank you." Ava's tone was polite but brief. She wasn't here to perform gratitude. Ethan stood slightly behind his parents, his attention drifting around the room. His eyes moved over Ava without real focus, the way someone looks at furniture. "Well," Mr. Sterling said, placing a hand on Ava's shoulder in a gesture that seemed friendly but felt possessive. "Shall we let everyone know the good news is moving forward?" Before Ava could answer, a photographer appeared. Flashbulbs popped. Mr. Sterling kept his hand on her shoulder. The photo would tell a story, the powerful man, the grateful newcomer. Ava stepped smoothly away as soon as the camera lowered. "I should let you enjoy your evening," she said. "I'm sure there are many people waiting to speak with you." Mr. Sterling's smile tightened just slightly, annoyance flickering before disappearing. "Of course, we'll find you for the signing." Ava moved away, circling back toward the edge of the room where the crowd thinned. She watched the Sterlings continue their circuit, watched Ethan accept another drink from a waiter, watched the way power move through the space like weather. She checked her phone discreetly. No messages. Everything back home was quiet, waiting. 30 minutes passed. The orchestra played. Conversations flowed. Ava spoke briefly with a German diplomat about security, politely dodged questions from a curious journalist, accepted a business card from a venture capitalist. She was near the center of the ballroom, momentarily alone in the crowd, when she noticed Ethan Sterling moving toward her. He was walking with the careful precision of someone who'd had several drinks but didn't want anyone to know. Two friends followed a few steps behind. "Try not to laugh," one whispered. Ava sensed the danger instantly. The way he was approaching. The phone held up in his friend's hand, recording. The casually cruel look on his face. Ethan stopped a few feet away, swaying slightly. His expression was amused, entitled, mean in the way only someone who never faced consequences could manage. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying. "Are you staff or like an exhibit?" The conversations around them quieted. People turned. Ava met his eyes but didn't respond. She knew what was happening. Knew the performance. Knew the moment was already unfolding in a direction she couldn't stop. Ethan lifted his glass of red juice slowly, almost theatrically. Red dark as blood. "Let me help you," he said, and poured it over her head. Time seemed to split. The juice was cold and shocking, running down her hair, her face, her sapphire dress. Red liquid dripped onto the white marble floor. Camera phones rose like a flock of birds taking flight. Flashbulbs popped. Someone gasped. The orchestra faltered, one section continuing while others stopped, creating a jarring sound that matched the chaos. Ava stood absolutely still. Juice ran down her neck, soaked into her dress, pooled in her shoes. She didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't move. The room held its breath. From across the ballroom, Mrs. Sterling laughed. The sound carried clearly in the sudden quiet. Mr. Sterling stood beside her, his expression somewhere between shock and amusement. He shook his head like Ethan had told an inappropriate joke. "Kids," someone said nearby, trying to ease the tension. "Guess the deal just got sweeter," another voice quipped. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Ethan stood there, empty glass in his hand, waiting for applause or approval or something. His friends were definitely recording now. Ava slowly raised one hand and took a white cloth napkin from a nearby table. She wiped her face carefully, her movements deliberate. Juice stained the cloth red. She folded it once, then looked directly at Ethan. She didn't speak, didn't threaten, didn't show anger. She just looked at him, then at his parents. Her expression was unreadable. The silence stretched too long. Someone coughed. Security guards shifted near the walls, waiting for Mr. Sterling's signal, waiting for someone to tell them what to do. The signal never came. Finally, a gala coordinator rushed forward, her face pale. "Miss Jenkins, please let me. There's a room where you can." "Thank you," Ava said quietly. Her voice was steady, calm, almost gentle. She turned and walked toward the exit the coordinator indicated. Every eye in the room followed her. Juice dripped from her hair, leaving a trail of red dots across the marble. Behind her, Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. "Well," he said loudly, forcing joviality. "Young people, right? Juice, big night. Everyone's excited." He laughed. Others joined uncertainly. "No harm done. These things happen." Mrs. Sterling moved beside him, already smoothing things over with nearby guests. "We'll replace the dress, of course. Send it to the best cleaner in New York." As if money could clean this away. Ethan stood there, still holding the empty glass, looking around for validation. Some people avoided his eyes. Others smiled uncomfortably. The orchestra started playing again, louder this time, trying to drown the moment in music. Conversations resumed slowly, carefully, everyone pretending things were normal, while cameras uploaded footage that would circle the globe before morning. And in a quiet room down a marble hallway, Ava Jenkins stood in front of a mirror, looking at herself, juice-soaked, humiliated, in front of the world's elite. Her phone was already buzzing with messages: Mark, Dr. Lena Davis, her legal team, news alerts. She ignored them all and pulled out a different phone. She made 3 calls, each brief, each to a number saved under only initials. Then she washed her hands slowly, carefully, watching pink water swirl down the drain. Her reflection looked back at her. Not broken, not defeated, calculating. Someone knocked softly. "Ms. Jenkins, we have a fresh gown for you, courtesy of the hosts." "Thank you," Ava said. "I'll be out in a moment." She dried her hands and opened the door. A staff member stood with a garment bag. Inside was a new dress, black this time, elegant and expensive. Ava changed quickly, professionally. The juice-stained sapphire dress went into a bag that someone would dispose of, probably grateful, to erase the evidence. But Ava had learned something important years ago. Evidence doesn't disappear just because you can't see it anymore. She checked her reflection one last time. The new dress fit perfectly. Her hair was mostly dry. She looked composed, professional, completely in control. She walked back into the ballroom. The crowd parted slightly. Conversations paused. Everyone watched to see what she would do. Mr. Sterling was at the signing table now, surrounded by lawyers and executives. He looked up as she approached, his expression carefully apologetic. "Ava," he said warmly, as if they were old friends. "I'm so sorry about that. Ethan will apologize personally tomorrow. Teenage boys, you know how they are." Of course, Ava said smoothly. She took her seat at the table. Everyone relaxed slightly. She was playing along, taking the high road, being professional. Mr. Sterling smiled wider. Excellent. Well, shall we proceed? I believe we have quite an audience waiting. Ava looked at the documents spread before her. The ceremonial signing, ready for cameras and witnesses. She picked up the pen provided, a heavy designer piece worth more than her first computer. Actually, she said calmly, I'd like to request a brief delay. Just to review the final materials one more time. Mr. Sterling's smile flickered. We've already reviewed. I know, but I'd like to review them again, if you don't mind. The words were polite. The tone was firm. Mr. Sterling glanced at Victor Stone, who had appeared beside the table. Victor gave a small shrug. What could they say? She had the right to review before signing. Of course, Mr. Sterling said, his smile now plastic. Take all the time you need. We'll proceed in, shall we say, 1 hour? Perfect. Ava set the pen down and stood. Thank you for your patience. She walked away from the table, leaving the unsigned documents behind. Around the ballroom, people whispered, cameras clicked, the orchestra played on, and Mr. Sterling watched Ava Jenkins disappear into the crowd, a tiny nod of concern forming in his chest that he immediately dismissed. She'd sign. They always signed. He had no idea that everything was already falling apart. Ava's departure from the signing table sent ripples through the ballroom. Conversations resumed with forced normalcy, but eyes kept drifting back toward her, trying to figure out what had just happened. She moved through the crowd with the same measured grace she'd shown all evening, as if Jews hadn't been poured over her head 30 minutes ago, as if she hadn't just delayed the biggest deal of the year. A waiter approached cautiously. Miss Jenkins, can I get you anything? Water, please. Still no ice. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Ava found a quiet corner near a tall window overlooking Central Park. The city lights reflected on the dark trees and buildings, creating a second New York that existed only in mirror image. She checked her phone. 47 messages, 12 missed calls, 3 voicemails. She ignored them all and opened an encrypted messaging app instead. The first message went to Dr. Lena Davis. It happened differently than expected. Adjusting timeline. The second went to her chief technology officer, a woman named Maya Rodriguez, who'd been with her since the beginning. Initiate Phase 1. Document everything. The third went to a number saved only as J, with no other identifier. They showed me who they are. Proceeding. She sent all 3 messages, then deleted the app and reinstalled it from a secure backup. The messages would be unrecoverable within minutes, existing only on the recipient's devices until they, too, deleted them. The waiter returned with her water. Ava thanked him and took a small sip, watching the room over the glass rim. Mr. Sterling was surrounded by concerned executives. She could see Victor Stone gesturing emphatically, probably explaining why a delay was actually a problem. Mrs. Sterling had positioned herself near a cluster of wealthy socialites, doing damage control with smiles and whispered explanations. Ethan was nowhere visible, likely removed by handlers before he could cause more embarrassment. Near the orchestra, a woman in her 60s approached. She had silver hair, an elegant navy dress, and the posture of someone accustomed to being listened to. Miss Jenkins. The woman's accent was British upper class. I am Olivia Hayes. I don't believe we've met. Ava recognized the name. Hayes was old money with holdings in media, shipping, and pharmaceuticals across 3 continents. She was the kind of person who rarely attended events unless she wanted to be there. A pleasure, Ava said, shaking her hand. I wanted to tell you, Olivia said quietly, that what happened earlier was appalling. Absolutely inexcusable. Thank you. I also wanted to tell you that I've watched the Sterling Group for many years. They're very good at appearances. Olivia's eyes were sharp, intelligent. But appearances and foundations are different things, aren't they? Ava met her gaze. They are. If you ever need counsel from someone outside their circle, I hope you'll reach out. Olivia produced a card from a small clutch. My private number. Ava accepted the card, noting that it was hand-engraved, not printed. I appreciate that. Olivia smiled slightly. Something tells me you already have everything you need, but additional perspectives never hurt. She glanced toward where Mr. Sterling stood. Especially when dealing with people who mistake momentum for permanence. She walked away before Ava could respond, disappearing into the crowd with the ease of someone who'd spent a lifetime navigating rooms like this. Ava slipped the card into her clutch and checked her phone again. A new message, this one from Mark. Networks are lighting up. Video has 2M views already. You okay? She typed back. Perfect. Let's spread. Mark responded immediately. You sure? Completely. The more people see it, the better. She could almost feel his confusion through the phone, but he didn't argue. Mark had learned years ago that when Ava made decisions that seemed counterintuitive, there was usually a reason. Across the ballroom, Victor Stone was making his way toward her. He walked with purpose, but not aggression. His expression professionally concerned. Ava watched him approach, already knowing what he would say. Ms. Jenkins. Victor extended his hand. She shook it. Victor Stone, Senior Counsel for the Sterling Group. I wanted to apologize personally for the incident earlier. Mr. Stone? Ava's voice was cordial. I appreciate that. Mr. Sterling asked me to assure you that Ethan will face appropriate consequences. This behavior doesn't represent our organization's values. I understand. Ava paused. Though I have to admit, I'm curious about something. Victor's expression shifted slightly, weariness creeping in. Yes? Where was security? There were at least 6 guards in the room. None of them moved until after the juice was already poured. The question hung in the air between them. Victor opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. I can't speak to security protocols. Of course not. Ava's smile was gentle, almost understanding. It was just an observation. Victor cleared his throat. The signing. Mr. Sterling mentioned you wanted additional time to review. That's correct. Is there something specific you're concerned about? Our legal team can address any questions immediately. Ava took another sip of water. No specific concerns. I'd just like to be thorough. Of course. Of course. Victor shifted his weight slightly. It's just that we have quite a few people here specifically for the signing. International partners, board members, media. The delay creates some logistical complications. I'm sure it does. Ava's expression remained pleasant. I'll be as quick as I can. Victor studied her for a moment, trying to read something in her face. Ava had spent years perfecting that face, the one that gave away nothing while appearing completely open. Well, Victor said finally, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Actually, Ava said, I do need something. A private review room, somewhere quiet where I can go through the documents without distraction. Victor looked relieved, as if this was a normal, manageable request. Absolutely. I'll arrange that immediately. Thank you. He walked away, pulling out his phone. Ava watched him go, then checked her own phone again. A new message from Maya. Phase 1 initiated. All provisional permissions now flagged for review. Ava deleted the message. 5 minutes later, a young woman in hotel staff uniform approached. Miss Jenkins, we have a private room prepared for you if you'll follow me. Ava followed her through a side door, down a marble corridor, and into a small conference room. It was elegant but understated, with a long table, leather chairs, and windows overlooking Central Park. The documents were already laid out, along with a laptop, a legal pad, and several pens. Can I get you anything else? The staff member asked. No, thank you. This is perfect. The woman left, closing the door softly behind her. Ava stood alone in the quiet room. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark park, at the lights reflecting on its surface, at the towering buildings beyond. Then she opened her phone and made a call. It rang once. Ava. Dr. Lena Davis's voice was calm but alert. Are you safe? I'm fine. Listen carefully. Contact Agent Miller at the Financial Crimes Division. Tell him I'm ready to cooperate with any inquiries into infrastructure compliance. There was a pause. He'll want to know what prompted this. Tell him I discovered major problems during my checks. Tell him I tried to fix them privately but was ignored. That's a strong word. Ignored, is it? Ava's voice was soft. A teenager poured juice over me in front of 300 people, Lena. His parents laughed. Security didn't move. That's not an accident. That's a message. Lena was quiet for a moment. You think they were trying to scare you? I think they were showing me my place. Ava turned from the window. They just didn't realize I was already standing somewhere else. I'll make the call. What about the deal? Let them wait. Ava ended the call and dialed another number. This one rang 4 times before a man answered. Owen Price. Mr. Price. This is Ava Jenkins. There was a sharp intake of breath. Ms. Jenkins! I've been trying to reach you for comments about. I know. I saw your messages. I'm not calling to give you a comment. I'm calling to give you something better. Owen's voice sharpened with interest. I am listening. Check your encrypted email in approximately 3 minutes. You'll find documents related to the Sterling Group's infrastructure compliance. I've highlighted the sections that don't match their public disclosures. Miss Jenkins, are you sure you want to? I'm completely sure. One condition, you don't publish until I give you clearance. Could be hours, could be days. But when I say go, you go immediately. And why would I agree to that? Because if you publish too early, they'll bury it. If you publish when I tell you, it'll land in the middle of something they can't contain. Ava paused. Also, because I'm about to send you the story of a lifetime, and you're smart enough to know it. Owen was silent for a long moment. I need to verify everything independently. I'd expect nothing less. The sources are all cited. Everything is documented. Verify whatever you want. Okay, I'm in. Good. Watch your email. Ava ended the call and opened her laptop. She had prepared the documents weeks ago when her audits first revealed the problems. Every citation was accurate. Every source was verifiable. Every claim was bulletproof. She learned the hard way that if you're going to challenge powerful people, you better be completely right. She sent the email, then deleted the sent message and cleared her cache. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor Stone. Just checking in. Do you need more time? Ava typed back. Almost done. 20 minutes. She wasn't almost done. She hadn't even looked at the signing documents, but she needed them to think she was going through the motions. She sat at the table and opened the acquisition agreement. It was a thick document, professionally prepared, probably reviewed by a dozen lawyers. She paged through it slowly, her eyes catching on familiar clauses. Section 14, Subsection C, Operational Authority Protocols. She had flagged this weeks ago. The language gave Sterling Group control over her infrastructure platform, but also gave her company provisional authority over their systems during the integration period. It was supposed to be temporary, a bridge clause, but Ava had never agreed to make it temporary. Her lawyers had negotiated permanent conditional oversight. The Sterling legal team had either missed it or thought it didn't matter. After all, why would a small company want ongoing authority over conglomerate systems? Unless that small company knew the conglomerate systems were compromised. Ava smiled to herself just slightly. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Maya. You need to see this. International partners are freezing transactions for separate entities. Just requested compliance verification. Ava's smile widened. Phase 1 was working faster than expected. She stood and walked back to the window. Down below, Central Park was perfectly still, reflecting everything above it with absolute clarity. She thought about her first office, a basement room she'd rented for $300 a month. She thought about the venture capitalists who dismissed her, the firm that had copied her work the night she'd almost given up. She thought about walking into this ballroom tonight, about the way people had looked at her, about Ethan's cruel smile as he'd raised that juice glass. And she thought about what was going to happen next. There was a knock at the door. "Miss Jenkins, Mr. Sterling is asking if you're ready." Ava checked her reflection in the window, composed, professional, completely calm, almost. She called back. 5 more minutes. She returned to the table and made one more call. This time to Victor Stone's private number, the one she shouldn't have had but did because she'd done her research months ago. He answered on the first ring. "This is Victor. Mr. Stone, it's Ava Jenkins. I wanted to speak with you privately before we proceed." "Of course. Is everything all right?" "That depends on your definition." Ava kept her voice conversational. "I've been reviewing the integration protocols. I noticed something interesting." She could hear Victor's breathing change slightly. "What's that?" "My company's conditional oversight authority. It's not as temporary as Mr. Sterling might think." Long pause. "I'm not sure I follow." "I think you do. You're thorough, Mr. Stone. You've read every word of this contract. You know exactly what that clause means." Another pause. "Miss Jenkins, if you have concerns about specific language—" "I don't have concerns. I have leverage." Ava's voice remained pleasant. "But I wanted you to know before we go back out there. Professional courtesy." "Are you threatening us?" "Not at all. I'm informing you. There's a difference." She paused. "See you in 5 minutes." She ended the call before he could respond. Mr. Sterling stood near the signing table, checking his watch for the third time in as many minutes. The room was getting restless. Board members were asking questions. International partners were making polite noises about scheduling conflicts. The media was starting to smell a story that wasn't the story he'd wanted them to have. "Where is she?" Mr. Sterling asked Victor, who had just returned from another phone call. Victor's expression was troubled. "In a review room, she says." 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes." Mr. Sterling's smile was tight. "She's been in there for 40 minutes. She has the right to review before signing." "I know that." Mr. Sterling's voice dropped. "What I don't know is why she needs to. We've been negotiating this for months. Everything's been vetted." Victor hesitated. "Mr. Sterling, I just got off the phone with her, and she mentioned something about conditional oversight authority, the integration protocols." Mr. Sterling frowned. "What about them? I think we need to review that section again carefully." Before Mr. Sterling could respond, his phone buzzed. His chief financial officer, Richard Davis, was calling. Mr. Sterling stepped away from the crowd, answering with forced cheerfulness. "Richard, everything all right?" "Mr. Sterling, we have a situation." Richard's voice was strained. "For international partners have just frozen pending transactions. They're requesting compliance verification before proceeding." Mr. Sterling felt something cold settle in his chest. "Which partners?" "The Berlin Bank Consortium, the Singapore Logistics Group, the Australian Infrastructure Fund, and the Dubai Holding Company. That's almost 60% of our pending capital influx." "I am aware." "Why now? What triggered this?" "I don't know. They all cited routine due diligence, but the timing is suspicious." "Mr. Sterling, they all made these requests within the last hour." Within the last hour, since Ava had gone into that review room. "Give me details," Mr. Sterling said. "Every communication, every request, everything." "Already on it." Richard ended the call. Mr. Sterling turned to find Victor watching him with a grim expression. "What?" Mr. Sterling asked. "I just got a similar message. 3 of our regulatory liaisons received inquiries about our digital infrastructure compliance, all within the last 30 minutes. The cold feeling in Mr. Sterling's chest expanded. "That's not coincidence." "No," Victor agreed. "It's not." Mrs. Sterling appeared beside them, her social smile firmly in place despite the tension in her voice. "People are asking questions, Mr. Sterling." About the delay, about the video, about Ava Jenkins. I can only smooth over so much before it starts to look like something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, Mr. Sterling said automatically. Then why has our acquisition target been locked in a room for 45 minutes? Mrs. Sterling's voice was sharp. Why are people checking their phones and frowning? Why did the Singapore representative just leave? Mr. Sterling had no answer for that. Across the ballroom, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Richard. Markets noticing. Stock down 3% in after-hours trading. Rumors about the deal falling through. Mr. Sterling looked toward the hallway where Ava had disappeared. A horrible suspicion was beginning to form, one he immediately tried to dismiss. She couldn't be doing this. She was one person with one company. He was Mr. Sterling. His family had been powerful for 3 generations. She needed this deal as much as he did, didn't she? The door to the review room opened. Ava walked out, composed and professional. The black dress she changed into made her look like she'd never been touched by juice or chaos. She moved through the room toward the signing table with unhurried confidence. Mr. Sterling forced his smile back into place. Ava. Finally, everything in order? Not exactly. Ava stopped a few feet from the table. The conversations around them quieted. People sensed something shifting. I need to discuss the valuation. Mr. Sterling's smile froze. The valuation was agreed upon months ago. That was before I understood the full scope of your infrastructure's vulnerabilities. The word hung in the air like a grenade with a pin pulled. Mr. Sterling felt Victor stiffen beside him. I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Sterling said carefully. I think you are. Ava's voice was calm. Factual. During our integration planning, my technical team discovered significant gaps in your compliance architecture. Undisclosed regulatory exposure. System weaknesses that create liability. That's absurd, Mr. Sterling said, but his voice lacked conviction. Ava pulled a tablet from her clutch and set it on the table. I have documentation. Would you like to review it here, or would you prefer a private discussion? Victor reached for the tablet. Mr. Sterling grabbed his wrist. What kind of game are you playing? No game. Just due diligence. Ava met his eyes. You want to acquire my company, Mr. Sterling? That means my technical team has been inside your systems. We've seen things your own auditors apparently missed. Or maybe they didn't miss them. Maybe they just didn't tell you. Victor pulled his arm free and took the tablet. His face went pale as he scrolled through the first few pages. This can't be right, Victor said quietly. It is. Ava's voice held no satisfaction, no triumph, just certainty. Every citation is verifiable. Every claim is documented. Mr. Sterling snatched the tablet and stared at the screen. Technical language, audit reports, system vulnerability assessments. He didn't understand half of it, but he understood enough. The words, compliance failure, and regulatory exposure, appeared repeatedly. Where did you get this? Mr. Sterling demanded. From your systems during the integration assessment you authorized. Ava tilted her head slightly. Did you think I was just checking compatibility? Around them, phones were buzzing. News traveled fast in rooms like this. Mr. Sterling could see people glancing at their devices, frowning, whispering. He looked toward the media section and saw reporters leaning together, one showing something on her phone to others. We need to discuss this privately, Victor said urgently. No. Ava's voice was firm. We need to discuss this now because the original valuation of $583 million was based on clean infrastructure. What you actually have is infrastructure with significant compliance debt and regulatory exposure. You're trying to renegotiate, Mr. Sterling said, anger seeping into his voice. In the middle of a gala, in front of everyone? I'm not renegotiating. I'm correcting. Ava tapped the tablet. Based on the actual risk profile, the fair valuation is approximately $119 million. The number felt like a bomb. People gasped. Cameras clicked. Mr. Sterling felt the room spinning slightly. That's less than 25% of what we agreed, he said. That's what clean infrastructure is worth. What you have isn't clean. Victor was scrolling frantically through the tablet. Mr. Sterling, some of these compliance gaps date back years. If regulators investigate, they won't, Mr. Sterling snapped. They already are. Ava's voice was quiet but clear. 3 different regulatory bodies began preliminary inquiries within the last 2 hours. I suspect you've been notified. Mr. Sterling stared at her. Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. The timing, the frozen transactions, the market movement, the inquiries. You did this, he said. I provided information when asked. Ava's expression remained neutral. I don't control what regulators do with that information. I don't control what your international partners decide. I don't control your stock price. But you knew this would happen. I knew the truth would eventually surface. I simply chose when to share it. Mr. Sterling took a step closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are. Ava didn't back away. You're a man who built an empire on appearances and connections. Who cut corners because you thought you were too powerful to be questioned. Who brought your teenage son to humiliate someone in public because you thought there would be no consequences. That's not. Your wife laughed, Mr. Sterling. You smirked. Your security didn't move. That wasn't an accident. That was culture. Ava's voice remained even, but something hard glinted in her eyes. You showed me who you are. I'm simply responding to the information provided. Mrs. Sterling pushed through the crowd. Mr. Sterling, we need to leave now before this gets worse. It's already worse, Victor muttered, still scrolling through the tablet. Mr. Sterling looked around the ballroom. Conversations had stopped. Everyone was watching. Cameras were recording. His empire's dirty laundry was being aired in front of the world's elite. I won't sign at this valuation, he said finally. I know. Ava picked up her clutch. Actually, I'm no longer comfortable proceeding at all tonight. The words hit like a second explosion. Victor's head snapped up. What? I said I'm not signing. The deal is postponed indefinitely. You can't do that, Mr. Sterling said. I can and I am. Ava looked at him calmly. You wanted a public signing, Mr. Sterling. You wanted everyone to see me standing beside you. You wanted the story. She gestured around the room. You got it. Just not the one you expected. She turned and walked away from the table. The crowd parted. Security guards looked at Mr. Sterling, waiting for orders. He gave none. What could he do? Force her to sign? Arrest her for declining a business deal? Ava reached the ballroom exit and paused. She looked back one more time, her gaze sweeping across the Sterling family, the stunned executives, the recording cameras. And she walked out. The ballroom erupted. Reporters surged toward Mr. Sterling. Board members began making urgent phone calls. International partners headed for exits. The orchestral music had stopped entirely, leaving only the sound of chaos. Victor grabbed Mr. Sterling's arm. We need to convene an emergency meeting tonight. If regulators are investigating and partners are pulling out, we have hours before this spirals completely out of control. Mr. Sterling watched the door Ava had disappeared through. She planned this. All of it, obviously. But how? She's one person, one company. Victor looked at him with something between pity and frustration. She didn't need to be bigger than you, Mr. Sterling. She just needed to be right. Across the ballroom, Mrs. Sterling was attempting damage control, but people were avoiding her now. The social capital she'd spent decades building was evaporating in real time. Mr. Sterling's phone buzzed continuously. Messages from board members, investors, lawyers, crisis management teams. He ignored them all and dialed Richard Davis. Tell me something good, Mr. Sterling said. I can't. Richard's voice was grim. The Singapore group just formally withdrew. The Dubai holding company is requesting a full independent audit before proceeding. The German consortium is in emergency meetings. Mr. Sterling, we're looking at a liquidity crisis if this continues. How long do we have? Days. Maybe a week if we're lucky. Mr. Sterling ended the call. He looked at Victor. Get everyone together. Every executive, every board member, every lawyer. Conference room 1. 1 hour. What are you going to tell them? That we underestimated Ava Jenkins. Mr. Sterling's voice was hollow. And that we need to figure out how to survive the mistake. Miles away in her hotel room overlooking Central Park, Ava stood at the window, still wearing the black dress. Her phone showed dozens of messages, but she read only a few. From Maya. Phase 1 complete. All provisional access protocols now in review status. They can't make any major system changes without our reauthorization. From Dr. Lena Davis. Agent Miller is very interested. Formal inquiry opening Monday morning. From Owen Price. Holy hell, I'm watching the fallout in real time. When do I publish? Ava typed back to Owen. Not yet. Let them panic first. Let them make mistakes. She set her phone down and caught her reflection in the window. The same face that had stared back at her hours ago when juice had dripped from her hair. But everything else had changed. They thought they could humiliate her, buy her, control her. They thought power was about money and connections and the ability to make others small. They were wrong. Power was about knowing exactly where the foundations were weakest. About preparing long before anyone knew a war was coming, about turning their own systems against them with nothing but patience and precision. Ava changed out of the dress and into comfortable clothes. She made tea and sat at the small desk. Her laptop showed market data, news feeds, social media reactions. The Juice video had 15 million views. Now, the story was spreading exactly as she'd known it would. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was happening in conference rooms and regulatory offices, in frozen transactions and compliance reviews, in the slow realization of exactly how vulnerable the Sterling Empire actually was. And Ava Jenkins had all night to watch it unfold. She opened her laptop and began drafting the next phase. There was still so much work to do. The emergency meeting began at 2 in the morning in a private conference room 3 blocks from the gala venue. Mr. Sterling sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by bleary-eyed executives, lawyers, and board members who'd been pulled from hotel beds or late dinners. The room smelled of coffee and desperation. Victor Stone stood at a whiteboard, marker in hand, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 5 hours. Let me make sure everyone understands the situation. 4 major international partners have frozen transactions pending compliance verification. 3 regulatory bodies have opened preliminary inquiries. Our stock is down 8% in pre-market trading, and the woman who was supposed to sign a $583 million acquisition deal tonight walked out and took her infrastructure platform with her. How bad is the compliance situation? Asked Margaret Chen, the board's senior director and a woman who'd survived 3 decades of corporate warfare. Really, really bad. Victor looked at Mr. Sterling, who nodded grimly. Ava Jenkins's audit revealed gaps in our digital infrastructure compliance that date back 3 years. System vulnerabilities we didn't know existed. Regulatory requirements we thought we'd met but actually hadn't. If investigators dig deep, they'll find problems in our logistics routing, our data handling, our energy grid integrations. How did we miss this? Margaret demanded. We didn't miss it, said Richard Davis, the CFO. We deprioritized it. Digital compliance wasn't sexy. It didn't impact quarterly earnings. We assumed our legacy reputation would insulate us from scrutiny. Well, it didn't, Margaret said coldly. She turned to Mr. Sterling. Did you know about any of this before tonight? Mr. Sterling met her eyes. I knew we'd fast-track some digital integrations. I didn't know they created liability. That's not an answer. That's the only answer I have. Margaret sat back, her expression unreadable. Around the table, other board members exchanged glances. Mr. Sterling could feel the room shifting, alliances recalculating in real time. What about Jenkins's company? Asked James Miller, who controlled the largest block of private shares. She walked out. Can we compel her to honor the agreement? There was no signed agreement, Victor said. She never put pen to paper. Legally, she owes us nothing. But we spent months negotiating. Doesn't matter. No signature. No deal. James leaned forward. Then we sue her for breach of good faith. Malicious interference. Whatever sticks. Victor shook his head. We can't. She documented everything. Every compliance gap, every system vulnerability, every regulatory risk. If we sue her, all of that becomes public record during discovery. We'd be handing ammunition to every regulator and competitor in the world. So we do nothing? James's voice rose. We just let her destroy us. She's not destroying us, Mr. Sterling said quietly. We did that ourselves. She just pointed it out. The room went silent. Mr. Sterling could feel everyone staring at him. He never admitted weakness before, never acknowledged a mistake this fundamental, but the truth was undeniable. Now the question, Mr. Sterling continued, is what we do next. How do we contain this before it gets worse? It's already worse, said Monica Park, their chief compliance officer, a woman who looked like she wanted to resign on the spot. I've been fielding calls all night. The European Union is requesting documentation on our data routing practices. The SEC wants clarification on our infrastructure disclosures. Australia is reviewing our energy grid contracts. This isn't containable, Mr. Sterling. This is a cascade. Richard cleared his throat. We need to talk about liquidity. If our international partners pull out completely, we're looking at a capital shortfall of approximately $400 million over the next 90 days. We have reserves, but not enough to cover operational expenses and debt service simultaneously. Can we secure bridge financing? Margaret asked. Not at rates we can afford. Not with this level of regulatory uncertainty. Richard pulled up a spreadsheet on the conference room screen. Our credit rating is under review. Our bonds are trading down. Every bank I've contacted wants to see resolution on the compliance issues before they'll commit capital. Mr. Sterling watched the numbers scroll across the screen. $400 million. The amount felt abstract, impossible. 6 months ago, the Sterling Group had seemed invincible. Now, they were discussing liquidity crises like a struggling startup. There's something else, Victor said quietly. Something I discovered about an hour ago. He pulled up a document on his tablet and projected it onto the screen. This is the original acquisition agreement. Section 14, subsection C. Mr. Sterling squinted at the legal language. What about it? This clause gives Jenkins's company conditional operational authority over our systems during the integration period. I thought it was temporary. It's not. The room went very still. What do you mean it's not temporary? Margaret asked. The language says the authority remains in effect until both parties agree to terminate it. Not until the integration completes. Until both parties agree. Victor's voice was strained. She structured it so we need her permission to make major system changes, and she's not giving it. That can't be legal, James said. It's completely legal. We agreed to it. Our lawyers signed off on it. We just didn't understand what we were signing. Mr. Sterling felt something cold and sick in his stomach. Are you telling me Ava Jenkins has veto power over our infrastructure? Effective veto power? Yes. Her company's provisional access protocols are embedded in our systems. If she revokes them, half our digital operations shut down within 48 hours. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Margaret looked at Mr. Sterling with an expression that could have frozen fire. You gave her that kind of leverage? I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't read carefully enough. Because you assumed she was desperate to sell. Because you treated her like she was powerless. Margaret stood. This is catastrophic, Mr. Sterling. We're not just facing regulatory problems. We're facing an existential threat from someone who has her finger on our off switch. She won't use it, Mr. Sterling said. But his voice lacked conviction. Why wouldn't she? You humiliated her publicly. Your son poured juice on her. You laughed. Margaret's voice was harsh. She has every reason to destroy us and apparently the means to do it. Mr. Sterling had no response to that. The meeting continued for 3 more hours, spiraling through scenarios and contingencies, none of them good. By the time dawn broke over New York, the Sterling Group's leadership looked like survivors of a shipwreck, clinging to debris and hoping for rescue. The first government announcement came on Monday morning. The United States Federal Trade Commission issued a statement requesting voluntary cooperation from the Sterling Group regarding data infrastructure practices and regulatory compliance. The word voluntary fooled no one. In regulatory language, voluntary meant comply or they would subpoena everything. The second announcement came 2 hours later. The European Commission's Competition Directorate announced a review of Sterling's logistics and energy operations across member states. Again, the word review was deliberately soft, but everyone understood it meant investigation. By Tuesday, Australia's Infrastructure Authority had suspended approval for 2 Sterling energy projects pending compliance audits. The suspensions were temporary, the announcement said, but temporary could mean months or years. Mr. Sterling watched the news from his Manhattan office, feeling his empire crumbling in slow motion. His phone rang constantly. Investors demanding explanations. Board members suggesting he step aside temporarily. Lawyers discussing defensive strategies. Crisis management firms pitching their services. Mrs. Sterling called from their penthouse. The Metropolitan Museum of Art canceled our gala sponsorship. The New York Historical Society revoked my board position. Mr. Sterling, people are avoiding me at the club, at benefits, everywhere. It's like I'm contagious. I know, Mr. Sterling said tiredly. It's the same here. This is because of that woman. Because of what Ethan did. Mrs. Sterling's voice cracked slightly. One stupid mistake, and our entire life is falling apart. It wasn't one mistake. It was years of them. We just didn't know it until someone pointed them out. I don't understand how this happened. We're the Sterlings. We've always been untouchable. We were never untouchable, Elaine. We were just never challenged by someone who knew what they were doing. He hung up before she could respond. His computer screen showed market data. Sterling Group stock was down 23% from its position a week ago. Billions of dollars in market value gone. Institutional investors were dumping shares. Hedge funds were shorting the stock, betting it would fall further. Victor appeared in his doorway. We need to talk about the board meeting tomorrow. What about it? They're going to vote on your position as chairman. Mr. Sterling looked up sharply. Based on what grounds? Failure of oversight. Mismanagement of strategic risk. Take your pick. Victor sat down heavily. Margaret has the votes, Mr. Sterling. I've done the math. She can remove you. After everything I've built. Everything you built is currently under investigation by 3 governments. Your stock price is tanking. Your international partners are fleeing. Your son created a viral video that's been viewed 40 million times, showing him humiliating a black woman CEO while you stood there smiling. The board doesn't care about loyalty right now. They care about survival. Mr. Sterling stared at him. You think I should step aside? I think you don't have a choice. Before Mr. Sterling could respond, his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Sterling, Owen Price from the Financial Standard is here. He says he has questions about a story he's publishing tomorrow. Mr. Sterling and Victor exchanged glances. Owen Price was the investigative journalist who'd broken several major corporate scandals. If he was here, it meant the situation was about to get significantly worse. Send him in, Mr. Sterling said. Owen Price entered carrying a leather bag and a recording device. He was in his 40s, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many powerful people lie to his face. He sat without being invited and placed the recorder on Mr. Sterling's desk. Mr. Sterling, I'm publishing a story tomorrow about internal documents that suggest your company concealed systemic compliance failures for at least 3 years. Do you have a comment? Where did you get those documents? Mr. Sterling asked. Multiple sources, all credible, all verified. Owen opened his bag and pulled out a thick folder. Would you like to see them? Maybe offer your perspective before publication? Mr. Sterling looked at the folder without touching it. He knew what was in there, the same information Ava had shown him at the gala, now being weaponized through the press. Off the record, Mr. Sterling said, did Ava Jenkins give you those documents? Owen smiled slightly. You know I can't answer that. But I will say this, I've been investigating your company for 6 months. Someone recently provided context that made everything make sense. She's orchestrating this entire thing. Is she, or is she just letting the truth come out? Owen leaned forward. Here's what I don't understand, Mr. Sterling. You had to know your infrastructure had problems. Your compliance officers had to have raised flags. Why didn't you fix it? We were planning to, after the acquisition. After you'd secured Ava Jenkins's technology to patch the holes. Owen's expression was sharp. That's what the acquisition was really about, wasn't it? You weren't buying her company for expansion. You were buying it for survival. Mr. Sterling said nothing, which was answer enough. Owen stood. I'll take that as confirmation. The story publishes at 6 a.m. tomorrow. If you want to include a statement, you have until midnight. He left the recording device on the desk and walked out. Victor waited until the door closed. He's right, isn't he? We weren't acquiring Jenkins's company. We were trying to use it as a patch. It doesn't matter now. It does matter. Because if that's the real story, if we were using her to cover our failures, then she had every right to walk away. Victor stood. Mr. Sterling, I've been your counsel for 15 years. I've defended decisions I didn't agree with. But we brought this on ourselves. Are you quitting? No, but I'm cooperating with the regulatory investigation. I have to protect myself. Protect yourself? Mr. Sterling's voice rose. I made you, Victor. Everything you have came from this company, and everything I'll lose if I go down with it. Victor moved toward the door. I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling, but I have a family, a career after this. You taught me to look out for my own interests. I'm just following your example. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Mr. Sterling sat alone in his office as afternoon faded to evening. His phone showed message after message, but he didn't read them. He pulled up news sites instead, watching the story spread in real time. Financial Standard. Sterling Group faces multiple regulatory probes amid compliance scandal. Wall Street Journal. Inside the collapse of a $583 million deal that exposed corporate vulnerabilities. Reuters. International partners distance themselves from Sterling Group. And underneath every article, in the comments and social media responses, the same video played over and over, Ethan pouring juice on Ava Jenkins. Mr. Sterling smirking, Mrs. Sterling laughing. The 15-second clip that had become shorthand for corporate arrogance and racial contempt. His office door opened without a knock. Mrs. Sterling walked in, her face pale. It's Ethan. Mr. Sterling looked up slowly. What? Expelled. Effective immediately. They said his behavior violated their code of conduct. They said the video demonstrated character incompatible with their values. Her voice shook. Mr. Sterling, he's been expelled from Harrison Academy. Do you understand what that means? Mr. Sterling understood. Harrison Academy was where future leaders were shaped. Where prime ministers and CEOs and judges sent their children. Expulsion didn't just close one door, it closed hundreds. Can we appeal? He asked. They won't take our calls. The headmaster released a public statement about institutional values and accountability. Mrs. Sterling sank into a chair. Everyone saw that video, Mr. Sterling. Everyone saw our son humiliate that woman, and everyone saw us laugh about it. Where is he now? At the apartment, with a counselor the school mandated. They said it's required for any chance at placement elsewhere. Mrs. Sterling looked at her husband. He's 17 years old, and his life is ruined. His life isn't ruined. It is. He'll never get into a good university now. No elite institution will touch him. He's the poster child for entitled racism. She laughed bitterly. We raised him to think he was untouchable. Turns out we were wrong. Mr. Sterling had no comfort to offer. His phone buzzed. Another message from Richard Davis. Liquidity situation critical. Need emergency board authorization for asset sales. Asset sales? They were selling pieces of the empire to stay afloat. Mrs. Sterling stood. I'm going back to the apartment. Ethan needs one parent who isn't drowning in investigations. Elaine, what? Mr. Sterling, what do you want to say? That this will all work out. That we'll be fine? She shook her head. We destroyed ourselves. We thought we were so powerful that we could do anything, humiliate anyone, ignore any rule. And now we're paying for it. She left without waiting for a response. Mr. Sterling sat in the gathering darkness of his office, watching the city lights come on below. Somewhere out there, Ava Jenkins was probably in her own office, running her company, living her life. She hadn't needed to destroy him. She just needed to stop protecting him. His computer pinged with a new email. It was from Margaret Chin. Marked urgent. Mr. Sterling, board vote moved to emergency session tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Suggest you prepare statement. MC. 8 in the morning? 12 hours from now. They'd vote on whether he kept his position. Mr. Sterling knew the outcome already. Victor had been right. Margaret had the votes. He pulled up a video on his phone. The juice incident. He'd avoided watching it, but now he made himself look. There was Ethan, cruel and casual. There was the juice falling. There was Ava's face, juice running down, expression unreadable. And there, in the corner of the frame, was Mr. Sterling himself, smirking. He looked like a man who thought he was witnessing something amusing. A minor embarrassment for someone inconsequential. He'd been so wrong. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Sterling almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Sterling. The voice was female, calm, familiar. This is Ava Jenkins. Mr. Sterling sat up straight. Ms. Jenkins, I want to let you know something before you hear it elsewhere. My company is signing partnership agreements with 3 governments for infrastructure oversight programs. We'll be working directly with regulatory bodies to establish new compliance standards. Mr. Sterling understood immediately. She wasn't just walking away from his deal. She was positioning herself as the solution to the problems she'd exposed. Congratulations, he said, and meant it. I'm not calling to gloat, Mr. Sterling. I'm calling because I want you to understand something. Her voice was quiet but firm. I gave your company months to fix these problems. I flagged them during our negotiations. I created provisional protocols specifically so you'd have time to address the vulnerabilities. You had every opportunity to do the right thing. We were planning to. No, you were planning to hide behind my technology while continuing to cut corners. That's not the same thing. She paused. What happened at the gala wasn't the cause of this, Mr. Sterling. It was just the moment I stopped giving you chances to fix it yourselves. My son was out of line. I should have stopped him. Yes, you should have. But the bigger failure was thinking you could treat anyone that way and face no consequences. That's not about Ethan. That's about a culture you built. Mr. Sterling had no response to that. I hope you use this time to rethink how power works, Ava continued. Because it's not about who has the most money or the oldest name. It's about who builds something real that people actually need. She hung up before he could respond. Mr. Sterling sat holding the silent phone. Outside his window, the city continued its endless motion. Down on the street, people walked to dinner, to home, to wherever their Tuesday evening took them. They had no idea that 42 floors above them, an empire was collapsing, and they wouldn't care if they knew. Mr. Sterling's computer showed Owen Price's article now posted early online. The headline read, "The CEO who walked away from $583 million and exposed an empire's foundations." Below it, a photo of Ava Jenkins standing in front of her company logo, looking calm and professional and completely in control. Mr. Sterling closed his laptop and stood. He had 12 hours before the board vote. 12 hours to prepare a statement that might salvage something from the wreckage. But as he looked around his office, at the photos of ribbon cuttings and handshakes with presidents and groundbreakings for projects that might never be completed, Mr. Sterling realized something fundamental had changed. He wasn't preparing to fight for his position. He was preparing to explain why he'd lost it. And for the first time in his life, he had no one to blame but himself. The press conference was supposed to stabilize things. That's what the crisis management team promised when they scheduled it for Wednesday morning at the Sterling Group headquarters. Mr. Sterling would address the investigations, announce cooperation with regulators, and demonstrate leadership during turbulence. The stock would bounce back. Investors would calm down. It didn't work out that way. Mr. Sterling stood at a podium in the main conference room, cameras pointed at him like weapons. Behind him sat Richard Davis and Monica Park, looking like hostages. Victor's chair was conspicuously empty. He'd resigned that morning via email, citing irreconcilable differences about legal strategy. Everyone knew it meant he was preparing to testify. "Thank you for coming," Mr. Sterling began, reading from prepared remarks. "The Sterling Group takes compliance seriously. We are cooperating fully with all regulatory inquiries and have retained independent auditors to review our systems. We remain committed to transparency and accountability." The words sounded hollow even to him. A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Sterling, sources indicate your company knew about infrastructure vulnerabilities for years. Why weren't they addressed?" Mr. Sterling glanced at his notes. "We prioritized multiple initiatives. In hindsight, we should have allocated more resources to digital compliance. Is it true your acquisition of Ava Jenkins's company was intended to cover those vulnerabilities rather than expand operations?" Mr. Sterling paused. The truth sat on his tongue like acid. "The acquisition would have strengthened our infrastructure." "Yes. So you were using her technology to hide your failures?" "That's not an accurate characterization." "Then what is?" Another reporter jumped in. "Miss Jenkins walked away from $583 million. That suggests she discovered something serious enough to abandon a massive deal." Mr. Sterling felt sweat forming at his collar. "Miss Jenkins made her own business decision. I can't speak to her motivations. Can you speak to your son's motivations?" A third reporter held up her phone, showing the juice video. "This incident has been viewed 50 million times. It shows your teenage son humiliating a black woman CEO while you and your wife laughed. Do you see how this reflects on your company's culture?" The room went silent. Cameras zoomed in. Mr. Sterling could feel his face heating. "My son made a terrible mistake. We've addressed it within our family. It has nothing to do with our business practices." "Doesn't it, though?" The reporter stood. "Multiple former employees have come forward describing a culture of entitlement at Sterling Group. Discrimination complaints that were buried. Women and minorities passed over for promotion. One employee called it a boys' club where rules didn't apply to the right people. Does that sound familiar?" Mr. Sterling opened his mouth, but no words came. Monica Park leaned toward her microphone. "We have strict anti-discrimination policies that apparently aren't enforced," the reporter shot back. "I have documentation of 6 formal complaints over 3 years that resulted in 0 disciplinary action." Richard tried to intervene. "This press conference was called to address compliance matters, not employment issues." "They're the same issue." Another reporter stood. "You built a company where powerful people thought they were above accountability. That's why compliance failed. That's why your son thought he could pour juice on someone without consequences. That's why you're in this situation." The questions came faster then, and aggressive. Mr. Sterling tried to maintain composure but could feel control slipping away. His prepared remarks were useless. Every answer created new problems. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, his assistant ushered him out of the conference room through a back door, avoiding cameras, feeling like he'd been physically beaten. In his office, he found Margaret Chen waiting. She didn't sit. "That was a disaster," she said flatly. "I did what the crisis team suggested." "The crisis team doesn't understand that you're not facing a PR problem, Mr. Sterling. You're facing a reckoning." Margaret crossed her arms. "The board voted this morning unanimously." Mr. Sterling felt his stomach drop. "Unanimously? You're being removed as chairman, effective immediately. James Sutton will serve as interim while we search for permanent leadership. After everything I built, everything you built is burning down. The board's responsibility is to the company, not to you." Margaret's voice wasn't cruel, just factual. "You'll retain your shares, but no operational authority. Security will escort you out within the hour." "You can't." "I can. The board can, and we did." Margaret moved toward the door. "For what it's worth, Mr. Sterling, I think you believed you were doing the right thing. You just forgot that good intentions don't excuse bad behavior. Eventually, someone notices. You just happened to notice when someone had the power to do something about it." She left without saying goodbye. Mr. Sterling stood alone in his office for the last time. 40 years of work. 3 generations of family legacy. All ending because he'd been too arrogant to see the cracks forming beneath his feet. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Owen Price had published his second article. Internal documents suggest Sterling Group hid systemic compliance failures for years. The story was devastating. Former employees quoted anonymously. Compliance reports buried, warnings ignored. And woven throughout, the narrative of a company that believed its power made it untouchable. Mr. Sterling scrolled through the article with numb detachment. Every paragraph was accurate. Every source was credible. Owen had done his job perfectly. At the bottom, a quote from Ava Jenkins' spokesperson. "Ms. Jenkins discovered these issues during preliminary integration work and attempted to address them through proper channels. When those channels proved unresponsive, she made the ethical choice to walk away rather than become complicit." The ethical choice. Those words hit Mr. Sterling harder than the rest because he'd had the same choice months ago. He'd had the information. He'd had the opportunity to fix things. He'd chosen convenience over ethics, speed over safety, image over substance. And Ava Jenkins had simply held up a mirror. Across the city, Mrs. Sterling sat in their penthouse living room with Ethan. A counselor named Dr. Patricia Green sat across from them, notepad in hand. This was the 3rd session mandated by Harrison Academy, and required for any chance of placement elsewhere. "Ethan," Dr. Green said gently, "can you tell me what you were thinking when you poured juice on Miss Jenkins?" Ethan slouched in his chair, arms crossed. "I don't know. It was just a joke. A joke requires everyone to find it funny. Did Miss Jenkins look amused?" "No." "Did you want her to be hurt or humiliated?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Everyone was laughing at other stuff. My friends dared me. I thought it would be funny. Why her specifically? I don't know. She was just standing there. She looked out of place. Out of place? How?" Ethan hesitated. Mrs. Sterling watched her son struggle with words he never had to articulate before. "Like she didn't belong at the gala with all those people." He glanced at his mother. "I thought she was someone's assistant or something." "So you assumed she was less important than the other guests?" "I guess." "Based on what?" Ethan said nothing. Dr. Green let the silence stretch. "Based on what she looked like," Ethan finally whispered. "Because she was black. Because she was a woman. Because she was alone." It was the first honest thing he'd said in 3 sessions. Mrs. Sterling felt something crack in her chest. "That's good, Ethan," Dr. Green said. "Acknowledging that is important. Now tell me what you understand about the consequences." "I got expelled. Everyone hates me. The video is everywhere." His voice was bitter. My life is ruined. Is it? Dr. Green leaned forward. Or has it just started being difficult for the first time? You're 17 years old, Ethan. You've attended elite schools, lived in penthouses, traveled the world. You've never been told no in any meaningful way. Your parents protected you from consequences. Your wealth protected you from reality, until now. So, what am I supposed to do? Ethan's voice cracked. Everyone already decided I'm a terrible person. Then prove them wrong. Not with words, but with choices. Dr. Green set her notepad down. You humiliated someone publicly. That's documented forever. But what you do next isn't written yet. You can spend your life making excuses, or you can spend it being better. After the session, Mrs. Sterling walked Dr. Green to the door. Will he be okay? That depends on whether he wants to be, and whether you let him experience real consequences instead of cushioning them. What do you mean? I mean, don't use your money or connections to erase this. Let him live with what he did. Let him rebuild from nothing. That's the only way he learns. Dr. Green left. Mrs. Sterling returned to the living room where Ethan sat staring at his phone. Mom! His voice was small. Am I going to jail? No, sweetheart. What you did was horrible, but it wasn't criminal. Then why does it feel like my life is over? Mrs. Sterling sat beside him. For once, she didn't have a comforting answer ready. Because for the first time, you're experiencing what most people experience every day. Judgment without protection. Consequences without escape. It feels like the end because it's unfamiliar. But it's not the end, Ethan. It's just the first time you're not being shielded from reality. I hate it. I know. Mrs. Sterling pulled him close. I hate it too. But maybe we needed to hate it. Maybe we needed to feel what we made others feel. Ethan started crying. Mrs. Sterling held him, her own tears falling silently. They'd raised him to believe he was special, above rules, protected by status. They'd been wrong, and now they were all paying for it. 3 months later, the landscape had completely changed. The Sterling Group survived, but barely. The board sold off 3 major subsidiaries to address liquidity issues. Mr. Sterling's replacement, a woman named Catherine Valdez, brought in from outside, implemented sweeping compliance reforms. The company was smaller, scrutinized, humbled, still operational, but no longer dominant. Mr. Sterling himself had retreated to a house in Connecticut. No interviews, no public statements. His marriage to Mrs. Sterling was intact, but strained. They were learning to live with less, with obscurity, with the knowledge that they destroyed what they'd spent lifetimes building. Ethan was attending a state university after 9 private schools rejected him. No protection, no special treatment, just an 18-year-old trying to figure out who he was when stripped of everything that had defined him. Regulators had issued fines totaling $800 million across multiple jurisdictions. Criminal charges were discussed but ultimately not filed. The punishment was public, permanent, and sufficient. Victor Stone had testified in exchange for immunity. He now worked for a small firm in Seattle, far from power, earning redemption one honest case at a time. And Ava Jenkins had become exactly what she'd always been. Only now, everyone else noticed. She stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., addressing a closed forum on technology, ethics, and infrastructure security. The audience consisted of policymakers, academics, and industry leaders. No cameras, no press, just serious people discussing serious problems. The question isn't whether corporations will cut corners, Ava said. The question is whether we build systems that catch them when they do. Infrastructure isn't just technology. It's accountability made tangible. She spoke for 30 minutes about conditional oversight, provisional protocols, and the importance of embedding ethics in architecture rather than policy. People took notes, asked questions, listened. Afterward, Dr. Lena Davis found her in a quiet corridor. You handled that well. I've had practice. Ava smiled. 3 governments now for corporations. More coming. Your company's valuation has tripled since New York. Money's nice. Impact is better. Ava looked at her mentor. Did you ever think it would go this way? I knew you'd succeed. I didn't know you'd burn down an empire in the process. I didn't burn it down. I just stopped holding it up. Lena squeezed her shoulder. That's an important distinction. Don't forget it. Later that evening, Ava sat in her hotel room reviewing proposals. Her company was expanding faster than she'd anticipated. The partnerships with regulatory bodies had created demand from other governments. Private corporations wanted the same oversight systems to prove they weren't hiding problems. Her phone buzzed, an email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "From Ethan Sterling." Ava hesitated, then opened it. Miss Jenkins, I don't expect you to read this or respond. I just needed to write it. I'm sorry for what I did. Not because I got in trouble, but because I hurt you. I humiliated you in front of everyone. I did it because I thought I could. Because I'd never been stopped before. Because I was raised to think people like you didn't matter as much as people like me. I was wrong. My therapist says sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have right now. I'm trying to be better. I'm probably failing, but I'm trying. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that what you did changed me. Maybe that doesn't matter to you. Maybe it shouldn't, but it's true. Ethan. The email was clumsy, honest, and clearly written without editing. Ava read it twice, then closed her laptop. She wouldn't respond. Some things didn't need responses, but she saved the email in a folder labeled Growth. 6 months after the New York Gala, Ava stood in her new office. The space was larger, brighter, with windows overlooking the harbor. Her team had grown from 40 to 200. They had just signed contracts with the European Union and 3 additional countries. Mark Chen knocked on her open door. You have a visitor. Didn't have an appointment, but says it's important. Who? Mr. Sterling. Ava went very still. Then she nodded. Send him in. Mr. Sterling looked older, thinner. His expensive suit didn't fit quite right anymore, like he'd lost weight and hadn't bothered getting it tailored. He walked into her office with none of his previous confidence. Ms. Jenkins, thank you for seeing me. Mr. Sterling. Ava gestured to a chair. What can I do for you? Mr. Sterling sat carefully. I came to apologize properly. Not through lawyers or statements. Person to person. All right. What my family did to you was inexcusable. What I built was rotten at the foundation, and I refused to see it. You tried to show me, and I dismissed you. Then my son humiliated you, and I laughed because I thought you were powerless. He looked at his hands. I was wrong about everything. Ava said nothing, waiting. I don't expect forgiveness. Mr. Sterling continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What you did wasn't revenge. It was exposure. You held up a mirror, and I had to look at what I'd become. Why tell me this? Because you're the only person who might understand what I'm trying to say. Everyone else either hates me or pities me. You just saw me clearly. Mr. Sterling met her eyes. You won, Ms. Jenkins. Completely. I hope you're proud of what you built. I am, Ava said quietly. But not because I beat you. Because I built something real that helps people. Your collapse was just a side effect of that reality. Mr. Sterling nodded slowly. That somehow makes it worse. If you destroyed me out of revenge, I could blame you. But you didn't. You just refused to prop me up. That's on me. Yes. Ava agreed. It is. Mr. Sterling stood. I won't take any more of your time. I just needed to say it face to face. Human to human. Mr. Sterling. Ava stopped him at the door. What are you doing now? Teaching business ethics at a community college. Part-time. He smiled without humor. Apparently, I have relevant experience in what not to do. That's good. Learning from mistakes is valuable. For whatever it's worth, Miss Jenkins, I'm glad you walked away that night. I'm glad you exposed what we were. The world needed to see it. I needed to see it. He left quietly. Ava stood at her window watching the harbor, thinking about power and accountability, and the strange paths people take toward understanding. A year after the New York Gala, Ava signed a document that mattered more than any acquisition. It was a grant program funding minority-owned infrastructure startups, $20 million annually. Mentorship, resources, the kind of support she needed a decade ago and never received. She signed her name with the same pen she'd almost used at the gala, the one worth more than her first computer. She kept it as a reminder. Dr. Lena Davis stood beside her. Your parents would be proud. They'd probably tell me to be careful, not to trust the success too much. Smart parents. Careful parents. Ava set the pen down. They taught me that power isn't about having it. It's about knowing when to use it, and when to build something better instead. Is that what you did? Build something better? Ava looked at the document. $20 million. 40 startups funded in the first year. Hundreds of jobs created. Infrastructure improved in communities that had been ignored. I'm trying, she said. That evening, Ava returned to her office alone. The building was quiet. She stood at the window looking out at the city lights, thinking about a night in New York when Jews had run down her face, and everyone had assumed she was powerless. She thought about the choice she'd made in that moment. Not to rage or cry or demand immediate justice, but to wait, to let them show themselves completely, to build something they couldn't tear down. Her phone showed news alerts. The Sterling Group's latest quarterly report showed modest recovery. Still smaller, still scrutinized, but surviving. Mr. Sterling teaching ethics. Ethan in community college, volunteering at a nonprofit. Mrs. Sterling working as an architect again, designing affordable housing. They were rebuilding from ashes. It would take years, maybe decades. Maybe they'd never fully recover what they'd lost, but they were trying, and that mattered. Ava picked up the expensive pen one last time. She turned it in her fingers, feeling its weight. Then she placed it in a drawer and closed it. She didn't need reminders anymore. She knew who she was, what she'd built, what she represented. Not revenge, not anger. Just a woman who'd refused to be small when someone tried to make her that way. A woman who'd walked away from $583 million because she'd rather build something true than profit from something broken. A woman who'd shown the world that power wasn't about money or status or the ability to hurt others without consequence. Power was knowing your worth, building real value, and refusing to compromise either one for anyone's comfort. Ava turned off the lights and walked out of her office. Behind her, the city continued its endless motion. Millions of people working, dreaming, building their own versions of success. And somewhere in that vast landscape, a young black girl was learning to code, or pitching her first startup, or refusing to accept someone's low estimation of her potential. That girl would face obstacles, discrimination, doubt, people who would try to make her small. But maybe she'd hear the story of Ava Jenkins. Maybe she'd learn that you don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be cruel to be strong. You don't have to accept someone else's story about who you are. You just have to build something real and refuse to let anyone take it from you. Ava walked out into the night, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. Not because she'd won, but because she'd never needed to.